let's get started. A good Nechaydish, everybody. Is Jeff joining us? Jerry, is Jeff joining us?
He was supposed to.
All right. Well, so then we'll start off slowly. Okay, we're up to the Mishnah on Chavav Amud Beis 26b1, the bottom of the Mishnah. And now we're going to get into really the details of what shofar. Shofar details. Okay, and it is what it is. Here we go. Shofar shel Rosh Hashanah shel Yo'al Poshet. The shofar of a Rosh Hashanah should be the horn of a wild goat that is a horn that is straight. In other words, I think like an ibex, something like that. Okay? And you picture it in your head. We're on 26b2 now. 26b2. Upiv mitzupa zav. And remember, this is a Mishnah. This is not the way we ultimately paskin. But the Mishnah says, Upiv mitzupa zav. And the mouth of the shofar is plated with gold, which of course is problematic, as we said before. If you blow on the gold and not on the shofar, by definition, you're not actually blowing with the shofar. So, and two trumpets are at the side, are blown. Shofar marich, the shofar is blown long. The chatzotzos mekatzos, and the trumpets are blown short. Why? So that after the sounds of the trumpet dissipate, you still hear the sound of the shofar b'shem mitzvah hayoim b'shofar, because the commandment of the day of Rosh Hashanah is with the shofar. Obviously, we're talking Bisman Shebeis Hamikdash Kayim, the time when the Beis Hamikdash was still standing. Now, Ubetanios, on fast days, B'shel Zechorim Kifufin, we actually blow from the horns of male goats, rams, which are bent, which of course is in reality the shofars that we have today that are bent. Upiem Mitzupa Kesef, and their mouths of these shofars are plated with silver. Ushtei Chatzotzes Be'emtza, and two trumpets are blown in the middle. And the shofars on the side and they're in the middle. Shofar Mekatze, the shofar's blow is short. The Chatzotzes Marichos, and the trumpet blows are long, so that when the sound of the shofar dissipates, you still hear the sound of the trumpet. Shemitzes Hayoy Bechatzotzes. Because the mitzvahs of the shofar of the day of the timeless is actually with trumpets. Shaveh hayovel Rosh Hashanah, the jubilee year that one every 50 years, the shofar blown to call that year in and possibly to call the year out, has the same halachas like the shofar of Rosh Hashanah. L'tekiah, with regard to the blowing, ula brachas, and to the brachas, i.e., that the same brachas of Malchias, Zechronias, and Shofars, kingship, remembrance, and Shofars is also davened on Yovel. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Rosh Hashanah toikim b'shel zechorim." On Rosh Hashanah, we do blow with horns of the rams, ubi Yovel b'shel ye'elim. But on the Yovel years, we blow on the horns of the wild goats, the ibex. Okay, Jerry, the Mishnah made sense. I'm going into the Gemara. Stop me.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, just because there's a lot of this is going to be esoteric and how you straight and curved. This is really where we're coming to. Amar Rebbe Levi, mitzvah shel Rosh Hashanah v'shel Yom Kippurim, the mitzvah of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, b'kechufin, with a bent horn, a horn that's bent over. V'shel kol Hashanah, but all the rest of the year, on the Tanaisim, on the fast, kipshutim with straight ones. So says the Gemara, but our Mishnah said just the opposite. But Tanan Shofar Rosh Hashanah Sheyah Pashut, that the Shofar Rosh Hashanah is from the horns of a wild goat that are straight. The horn is straight. So what's going on here? Says the Gemara 26b3. 26b3. Who dama ki haitana? The lady is stating his din that Rosh Hashanah and Kippur with carved horns, bent horns, and Yovel with a straight horn. Like this Tana. The Tana regular Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda said, the Rosh Hashanah, are you taking Bishel? We blew from the horns of the males which are bent. Ubi Yoivos, Michelle Yehelim, we blew from the on Yovel, we blew from the wild goats, which is straight. So Lema Hilchas Rabbi Yehuda. So why doesn't Rabbi Yehuda just say simply the halach is like Rabbi Yehuda? Why does he have to first say what do you call it? Rabbi Levi mitzvah shalosh shalom sheni yemikura b'kifuf shel shalom b'shuten and not bring down Rabbi Yehuda. So why do we have to find this baraita? So let him simply say that there is a baraita that agrees with him. Because Amid halacha to Rabbi Yehuda. Because if he had said halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, that's all he had said. Habamina, I would have thought afilu shel yovel nami ki Rabbi Yehuda sviralei. That it would agree that it would say that Rabbi Levi holds like Rabbi Yehuda even in regard to using the straight shofar on Yom Kippur of the Yovel year. Kamash Malon, that the halacha does not follow Rabbi Yehuda on the Yovel year, and in fact, you have to use a bent shofar. And obviously, that's the way we paskin today. We use a bent shofar. So Zakti Gemara, but my kamafligi, in what are they arguing?
Jeffrey just joined us. Jeffrey just joined us.
Oh, very
Jeff
nice.
just joined.
Very good. Hi,
Good
Jeff.
morning.
Good morning. We're on 26B3. 26B3, heading to the bottom. We just had an argument between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanakama, our Tana in our Mishnah, on 26B3. Again, the right-hand column. We're about to begin. We'll just give you a quick update over here. The Tanakama held you blow on Rosh Hashanah from the horn of a wild goat. The horn of a wild goat, which is straight, like an ibex. And Rabbi Yehuda said, no, you blow with the shofar that's bent, with a bent shofar like we have, right? Our shofars are actually curved, a curved bent shofar. Okay, and that's the way we hold. So now we want to know what are they arguing? Why did one say straight and why did say crooked? What are they arguing about? Rabbi Yehuda holds for Rosh Hashanah. The more that a person could bow his mind. In other words, make himself small, be an honor, be very, shafal ruach, very lowered spirits to fame. The better it is, because the greater attitude of submission and humility is important on Rosh Hashanah. Ubiyom HaKippurim kamet the poshet in shidate, and the Yom Kippur of the Yovel year, of the Jubilee year, obviously not the regular Yom Kippur, the Yovel year, the more a person straightens out his mind, tefei ma'aliyah is better. Because what is the Jubilee year do? It's the year of freedom. All slaves go free. All Jewish slaves go free. They don't have a choice. They become a ben chayrin. He's saying when it comes to being a free person, straighten your back, be proud. So that's why the shofar of the Yovel of the Jubilee year should be a straight shofar. Umar Sava, but the Tanakama holds, Rosh Hashanah Kama to poshet in shidate. On Rosh Hashanah, the more that a person can straighten his mind to pay ma'aliyah, the better it is, and therefore a straight shofar is preferable. Why? Because on Rosh Hashanah you do a lot of davening, the Shemona Esreis, the Tefillot on Rosh Hashanah are much longer than any other time. The Musaf Shemona Esrei can take a half hour to daven. So he's saying when you're davening, when you're approaching the king, stand in front of his glory straight and straight up. Masha'enkein on fast days, on fast days throughout the year, the more a person can bow his mind to pay ma'aliyah, the better it is. So the Tanakh held on a fast day, you should use a ben shofar, but on Rosh Hashanah, you should use a straight. But we ended up going like Rabbi Yehuda that says, let's use a ben shofar even in Rosh Hashanah, better to have an attitude of submission and humility than standing straight. Okay, we're on today's daf. Chav Zayin Amid Aleph. Again, what we're going through over here really are just the details and the basic halachos of shofar, of the horn. Now, our Mishnah said the following words: Upiv mitzupazov, and its mouth, the mouth of the shofar, is plated with gold. Now, obviously, that's problematic because we learned already before you have to blow from the shofar. If you put some gold around the beginning of the shofar, you're ending up putting your lips on the gold. And that means you're blowing through the gold and not through the shofar. That's a problem. But Tanya says the Gemara, I got a question. Tzipu Azav, one who plates a shofar with gold, b'markem hanach piv. If it's in the place where one puts his mouth, pasul, it's pasul. Shaloi b'mnachas piv. But if it's not in the place where he puts his mouth, it's higher up on the shofar. Kosher, it's kosher. So how could you say that the mouth of the shofar in the base of Migdash was plated with gold? Amar Abaya, says Abaya, ki tana nami maslisin. In our Mishnah, it's taught as well when it says that it should be plated with gold. It's talking a place not where the mouth actually rests. The bottom, in other words, it could start an inch above the bottom part of the shofar. And 2 trumpets were blown on the side. So in other words, in the base of Migdash, the shofar was blown long, and 2 trumpets were blown short, because, and we said the shofar is blown long, so that when the sound of the trumpet dissipate, the sound of the shofar is still heard, because that's the mitzvah of the day. But the Gemara asks, the trey, kole, mimish, tameh, but it's possible for 2 sounds to be distinguishable when they're blown together. But Tanya, we learned when the Eibishter gave the luchais, when Hashem gave the 10 commandments, and he said Shabbos, on one way he said Zochar es Yom HaShabbos l'kadshay, and in the same exact moment he said Shamar es Yom HaShabbos l'kadshay. In Parshas Yisroi, by the story of Maimon HaSinai, of Mount Sinai, it says Zochar es Yom HaShabbos l'kadshay. When in Parshas Hashanah, in Devarim, when Moshe is repeating the history of the last 40 years, Moshe brings down the Aseret HaDibros are written, but there it's written Shamar es Yom HaShabbos l'kadshay. Zachar to remember, Shamar to watch. One is a positive command, and one is a negative command. Zachar to remember is a positive. Shamar to guard the Shabbos day is a negative command, a loisase. But the thing that happened here is b'dibur echad nemru. They were pronounced by Hashem Yisparach in a single utterance. Now, which is something that a human being can't do. A human being can only talk word after word. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu said it exactly at the same time. And normally the human ear cannot normally hear it. At Maimon HaSinai, amazingly enough, they were able to go ahead and hear both Zachar es Yom HaShabbos l'kadshay and Shamar es Yom HaShabbos l'kadshay. Remember the Shabbos and what? And guard the Shabbos. And for the Gemara, how can you tell me I blew the trumpets together with the shofar? The sound of the shofar is going to get dragged off. It's not going to be heard individually. And for the Gemara, that's why lekach marach b'shofar. That's why the Mishnah says you have to prolong the blowing of the shofar. The shofar blow should be longer. Should be longer so that it outblows the sound of the shofar. So says the Gemara, Lamema de Chishama Saif Tekiya. Do you mean to tell me that when you hear the end of the shofar blast, but without hearing the beginning of the shofar blast, because the beginning was together with the trumpets, Yatsa, he's complete, he's discharged his obligation. Now therefore I can say tekiya, if one hears the beginning of the shofar blast, and doesn't hear the end of the shofar blast. So in other words, he hears the shofar beginning, and then a truck blows its horn. So he doesn't hear the end of the shofar. According to this, Yotza, you would be Yotza. But that clearly is not the case. But we really know that that's not the case. Toshma, but we see just the opposite from a Mishnah. This Mishnah is going to be in about 5 dafim. On Daf Lamed Gimel Lamed Beis, on 33b, says the Gemara, Toshma, Toka B'Rishoina, if one blew the first tekiyas of a set normally, Umashach B'Shniyah B'Gishtayim, and the second tekiah. So let's talk about our tekiyas. Tekiah, Shevarim, Teruah, and then we have another tekiah. What happens if he went ahead, Umashach B'Shniyah B'Gishtayim, and he prolongs the second tekiah sound for the duration of normal 2 ordinary tekiah sounds? So in other words, he blows it for, let's say, about 6 or 7 seconds. The second tekiah. Nonetheless, he's only accomplished 1 tekiah and not, in other words, the last tekiah of the first set and not the first tekiah of the second set. Amai, the Gemara says, why not? If I'm saying that you could be Mekayim your mitzvah with only part of the sound of a shofar, either at the beginning or at the end, like we just said, 27a2, Tislay, play, betray, it should be counted as 2 sounds. Says the Gemara, you're right. Well, I said before, if you could only hear the beginning or the end, and it was in the middle, there were trumpets. As long as you hear part of the shofar, you time your mitzvah, you carried out your obligation. Here, even though I made a huge, nice, long tekiah for about 7-8 seconds, nonetheless, it's 1 blow. It's not 2 blows. It's not the last of this set and the first of the next set. Why not? Pasuke tekiyosa bahadodi loima paskikinon. Because we do not split the parts of 1 blast from one to another. When you have 1 tekiah, the fact that you made it long doesn't change the fact that it's only 1 tekiah. The fact that it's only 1 tekiah, then it's only 1 tekiah. Even if I blow for 10 seconds, it's 1 tekiah. It doesn't go half of it for one, half of it to the other. It's 1 breath. It goes by the breath. You blew 1 breath of a tekiah, it's 1, i.e. the last of the set that you just blew. Says the Gemara, Toshma, again, a Mishnah that's coming up on Amud Beis, which we're probably going to get to today. Toshma tekeya l'soich habar. If one blows the shofar in a pit, in other words, anywhere where you might hear an echo, oy l'soich hadus, or inside a citron, oy l'soich hapitas, or in a large barrel, im kol shofar shama. If he heard the sound of the shofar without any echo, yotzo. The im kol chavar shama, but if he heard this call of his chaver, meaning the echo, lo yotzo. Right, the Gemara Amai. Why not? Let him fulfill the obligation with the first sounds of the blast. Before the sound of the echo. The echo, as you all know, you hear the echo about a second after you make a sound, right? You know, when you go into the valley and you scream and you go, hello, and then it comes back, hello, 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 right? There's a second break between you saying hello and the echo that comes back. If according to our Gemara, you can mekayim the mitzvah, you don't have to hear the whole blast. You only have to hear a portion of the blast. No, I heard a portion of the blast that's perfectly good. So the Gemara says, you're right. Ella, let me tell you, this is what's going on. The reason why the shofar and the trumpets can be blown together is trei kole michad gavra. 2 sounds issuing from 1 person, lo mishtame, cannot be discerned. It's too difficult to hear. Mitrei gavre mishtame. With the sounds, 2 sounds from 2 different people are discernible. So since the shofar is one and the trumpets are another, and obviously they're blowing by different people, it should be able to distinctly hear it. We'll come back to this when we finish just this line of thinking, but there's an interesting halakha right over here. How does a person with a cochlear implant or a hearing aid, how is he mekayim the mitzvah? And can he blow shofar for the congregation and be yaitz to the congregation? Think about it. Just what we're saying over here. The sounds have to be discernible. What does that mean? But let's keep going here in the Gemara first. But can two sounds issuing from two people be discernible? But Tanya, we learned, but Torah, when one is reading the Torah one is reading the Torah like today, where we lay the Torah on Rosh Hashanah, on Rosh Chodesh. Echad Kaira, one reads it, ve'echad mitargim, and another one translates. In the time of the Gemara, there was no art scroll, so guess what they did? They used to lay a pasuk, and then a translator would translate it into the language so that the people should understand what's being read. But they can't do it together. You can't have where one is reading and two are translating simultaneously. Right? You can't do it. In other words, it can't be a simultaneous translation. That means because two sounds coming from two people are not discernible. So it says the Gemara, no. The case of our Mishnah is only comparable to the ruling of the last ruling of the Brisa. B'Hallel u'b'Megillah, regarding Hallel and the reading of Megillah. Afilu asar and kairin, even if 10 people read them simultaneously, it's still good. Alma, chivan de chaviv, since each reading is especially chaviv, special to the listener, Yoav data, he puts his mind to it of discerning every word, and for that reason, 2 or more people can read simultaneously. Since the mitzvah of shofar is so special and dear, Yoav data shama, he puts his mind to it and he can discern the shofar through the sounds of the trumpet. We're now on 27A3. Okay?
So here's a question.
Yes.
Go back to the Torah reading with the Mikra. The Mikra, and we're talking about the Targum.
Yep.
Is this where we're getting it from, that on Shabbos, some of us, many of us, do Shtayim Mikra Echad Targum?
No. The Shtayim Mikra Echad Targum apparently, I believe, was sort of established to make sure that the pash that we go through the pash. Actually, I shouldn't say that. It is possible. Actually, I never thought of that. It is possible that they got to that. You see, Shnaya Mikra V'Echad Targum has been around for a long time. Let's
explain that to Jeffrey.
Right. It's so. Shnaya Mikra V'Echad Targum means during every week we try to read the parsha portion twice. So this week, as Pasha's told us, so we tried to lane it twice, to each one to ourselves, and one time with the Targum. That's the Targum Onkelos that's on the side of the Chumash, because that was the Aramaic at the time. That was the first art scroll. Onkelos was the first art scroll. He translated the Torah into Aramaic. Why do we do that? Well, clearly because we should do the parsha every week. It is very possible that the reason behind it is, as Jerry seems to be thinking, it's a very good deal, that it comes from over here, that one read and 1 and 2 translated, so that people should know. It goes very far back because the word shemais, shin mem vav saf, like in Sefer Shemais, the second book. Shemais is the Rosh Tevis, the Shin is Shnayim, the Mem is Mikra, the Vav is Ve'echad, and the Tov is Targum. Shnayim Mikra Ve'echad Targum. So it seems to be going back a long way. Jerry, I'd have to look it up. The question is a better question than I never thought about it. Honestly,
We'll
I
have
never.
to ask Rabbi Google Zimmerman.
That's right, exactly. And I will try to get back to you guys. By the way, did you guys all get the text I sent you on yesterday on Starry Decisis? I sent you guys a WhatsApp yesterday on Starry Decisis, that the American version of the Gemara that we discussed yesterday. Anyways, I don't know if you guys got a chance to look at it, just as an explanation. Again, Rabbi Google. There you go. So, let me just see what we're up to. Right, so now we're up to 2783. So the question is, then why does one blow long on the shofar? Since a person could go ahead and fulfill his mitzvah. We just said that if he loves the mitzvah is chavod, he could discern different sounds, even if they're simultaneously. Why do you have to blow the shofar longer than the blows of the trumpets? Not to hear it so much, but to publicize the fact that the mitzvah today is actually the blowing of the shofar and not the trumpets. Now, the Mishnah went further and said, Ubataniyos shel zechorim kifufin. And on the fast days, we blow with the horns of the ram, which are bent, upiv mitzufa kesef, and its mouth was plated with silver. Says Dr. Gemara, why in the case of the shofar of Rosh Hashanah do we plate it with gold? Why do we plate the shofar of a fast day with gold, with silver? Iba Yisema Kol Kinufia the Kesefu. Every assembly which is convened, which is brought together, is convened with instruments of silver. Diksiv Ase Lechosh Shtei Chatzaitzrais Kesef. Make for yourself 2 trumpets of silver. The Iba is saying, or another reason, HaTorah Chasam Amayim Yisrael. The Torah was concerned about a Jew's money, and it said, "Listen, just put silver on it, not gold." So if that's the case, says the Gemara, Hasanami Navid the Kesef. In that case, let the shofar of Rosh Hashanah also be done only in silver and not gold, because Chasam Amayim Yisrael. The Torah is always concerned about the money of Klal Yisrael. Afilu Hachi, nonetheless, Kavod Yontif Odiv. The honor of the Yontif is a greater consideration. And the reality is that Rosh Hashanah, we wait an entire year to hear the sound of the shofar. The sound of the shofar to us is so dear that we say, nonetheless, we're going to encase it in gold. Of course, today we don't do it, as we're going to see in a little while. After the base of English was Charav, we stopped doing it, and we're going to see it coming up shortly. Rav Papa Bar Shmuel Sabel Lemebat Umte Kimas Nisim. Rav Papa Bar Shmuel thought to act like our Mishnah. In other words, he wanted to blow the shofar and Rosh Hashanah together with the 2 trumpets, and 2 trumpets on fast days together with the shofar. Amalei Rabba said, Rabba Loi Amru Ela B'Mikdash. The shofar and the trumpets together is only in the base of Mikdash. Tani Nami Hoch. When did the Mishnah state this thing about the trumpets and the shofars? Give me 1 second. The Mikdash. But with regard to the provinces, anything outside of the Harabayas, the Beis Hamikdash, where they have trumpets, ain't shofar, there is no shofar. The Malkim Shiyeh shofar, but where there is shofar, ain't chatzaitzers, and there are no trumpets. The Henig Rav Khalifa Mitzipore, the Rav Chanina ben Tzradia besichli. And in fact, Rav Khalifa and Rav Chanania they actually did like the Mishnah. They blew the shofars and the trumpets together. But when the matter came in front of the Chachamim, that they were blowing both trumpets and shofars together, except by the eastern gates of the base of Mikdash, that's it. Otherwise, outside, we only blow with shofars. Amar Rava, Says Rabbi, the Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Some say it was Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Okay, my crow, we're on 2784, heading to the Mishnah on the bottom. My crow, what's the pasuk? The pasuk that we say every Friday night. Diksiv, with trumpets and the sound of the shofar. Hariu, you will blow. Lifnei Hamelech Hashem, in the presence of the King Hashem. Lifnei Hamelech Hashem, in the presence of the King of Hashem, in other words, in the Beis Hamikdash, we are required to blow trumpets and the sound of the shofar together. But in other places we do not. I heard a beautiful part, by the way. With trumpets and the sounds of a shofar, real we blow. Lifnei, the simple translation of the word lifnei is in the presence. But lifnei could also mean before. Lifnei, lifonai, before. Lifnei hamelech Hashem. In other words, b'chatzaitzais v'kol shofar, hariu, with the trumpets and the shofar that we blow in Elul. Lifnei, before Hashem becomes Hamelech Hashem, before we call Hashem Hamelech Hashem on Tishrei. It's a beautiful word. By the blowing of the shofar in Elul, we bring in before he becomes the Melech Hashem. It was a beautiful translation. The laws of Yovel are identical to the laws of Rosh Hashanah with regard to the blowing and the blessings, i.e., Malchus, Zecharias, and Shofis, kingship, remembrance, and service that we read, that we daven on Musaf in the Musaf Tefillot on Rosh Hashanah. That's what we do also on the Yovel in the Jubilee year. Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Yitzchak. Keman Matzilin Hadinan, according to whose opinion do we recite nowadays in the Rosh Hashanah davening? We say, this Rosh Hashanah is the anniversary day of the start of your handwork, a remembrance of the first day. It doesn't mean the first day of Bereshis, it means the first days of human beings. Remember, we said that the first of Tishrei or the first of Nisan, depending on which month is the sixth day of creation. The actual creation started on Chof Hey, on the 25th of Elul or the 25th of Adar, and therefore we have no idea how long the first 5 3/4 days are. Keman, according to who? Rabbi Eliezer, the world, i.e. people, were created in the month of Tishrei. Masav Rabbanah comes Rabbanah and says, Shabbat Yovel Rosh Hashanah l'Zekiyas u'lebrachas. The Mishnah said that Yovel is like the laws of the halachas of Rosh Hashanah with regard to the shofar and the brachas, the blowing and the blessings. But how could the Mishnah equate the 2 holy days with regard to the brachas when, according to Reb Shmuel bar Yitzchak, this day, Rosh Hashanah, Techila Masecha is the start of your handiwork. It's a remembrance of the first day. The Rosh Hashanah Isa. That makes sense on Rosh Hashanah because Rosh Hashanah is the first day of Tishrei. That's the day that human beings were created. For Yovel Lessa, it has no timing on the Yom Kippur of Yovel. Says the Gemara, Kikatina, you're right. Ashara, we're talking about the other blessings. Remember, on Rosh Hashanah, there's 3 blessings. Malchius, kingship, where we inaugurate the Eibishter. Zichrainos, remembrance. And Shofars, talking about the Shofar and the Shofar Mashiach. Malchius, Davin, Malchius, and Shofars. And you skip Zichrainos. Because you're right, because the Zechrinus is pointed out, the Zikara in the Yom Rishon. It's a Zikara in the Yom Rishon. So okay? Now, so says the Gemara, Rav Sheshes Bereder of Heidi Masni Hochi, Amar Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak, Hoditzna, this is what we learn. Shavar HaYovel Rosh Hashanah L'Tkiya L'Brachis. The laws of the Yovel year are identical to the laws of Rosh Hashanah for the blowing and the blessings. Kaman, like Rabbi Eliezer, not like Rabbi Eliezer. The Rabbi Eliezer, if it was like Rabbi Eliezer, we got the problem. Since he says the world people were created on Tishrei, that makes sense for the blessing. This is the anniversary day of the start of your handiwork, a remembrance of the first day. Rosh Hashanah doesn't make sense on the Yom Kippur of Yovel. So the Gemara, you're right. Kitani, it could be Rabbi Eliezer. Asha'ara, we're talking about Malchus, kingship, and Shofris, but you're right. Zikaron is not what we're going to talk about. Okay, we're about to start the next Mishnah. Everybody good? No questions? Good. Now we go to more halachas. Shofar shenistak, a shofar that splits. Okay, it splits along its entire length on both sides. That's a portion that we're going to say. The dipkoi, or you joined it in halves, you glued it together. Okay. The din is we're on 27A5, puzzle. It's puzzle. Even if you repair it, it's no good. Okay? Okay, because it must, and the reason is because the shofar sound must come out of one shofar. In essence, you've created another piece of something else to put it together. It's more than one shofar, as it were. That's Rashi's explanation. Debek shivrei shofars, if one joined the shards of various shofars to form one shofar, puzzle. It's again puzzle. Same reason. Okay? We're now on 27B1. 27B1. Amid base. Says the Gemara, Nikav, if the shofar got punctured with a hole, and that does happen. Trust me, it happens. I've got a few shofars with holes in them. Ooh, Sisamai, and he sealed the hole. The din is, if the seal hinders the blowing, puzzle. If it changes the sound, it's puzzle. Imlav, if it does not, kosher, it's good. We don't hold like this. We hold it. We don't use any shofar that's got any puncture. Hatekeya, the Seicha bar. This is the Gemara before mentioned this part of the Mishnah. Hatekeya the Seicha bar. If one blew a shofar in a pit which has an echo, other Seicha dus, or inside a citron, other Seicha pitos, or a large barrel, it calls shofar shama. If you can hear clearly the sound of the shofar without the echo, yatsa. If kolabara shama. But if he hears the sound of the echo, law yatsa, he doesn't fulfill his obligation. V'chein, and similarly, somebody's walking behind the shul. So in other words, you're late, and you're running through. The guys coming from Estancia are running through, and they come through the gate in the back. So they're behind the shul. Or give me 1 second. Oh, sorry. Or they live on Frontenac. They live on Frontenac, right in the first, when you walk right. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. I just got a phone call. Apologize about that. Okay. Anyways, here we go. Where am I? Okay. Somebody who's passing behind the shul. Or his house, like I said, is in Frontenac, near the shul. V'shama kol shofar, and he hears the shofar sound coming from the shul. Oy kol Megillah, or the sound of the Megillah. Im chavin liba yatsa, if he directs his mind to it, and he has now in mind to be mekayim to be mekayim is what do you call it? Mekayim is mitzvah. He needs to be mekayim is mitzvah. Give me a second. Or he has to be mekayim is mitzvah. Just give me a second. He has to be mekayim is. He has in mind to be mekayim is mitzvah of shofar or Megillah yatsa. Im lav. But if he's not mechaven liba, if he doesn't have it in mind, lo yotze. He just hears it and then he goes, oh, that's great. I was just yotze my chiyuv, but not at the time when it was blown. He only started having mine afterwards. Even though this one heard, and that one heard, everybody heard. The one who had in mind to be yotze heard, and the one who didn't have in mind at the time to heard it. Everybody heard it. This one directed his mind. This one did not direct his mind. Okay. Now this means that this Mishnah is going according to the Mandiyama mitzvahs tzarichis kavana. Mitzvahs, commandments need intent. Not everybody agrees with that. Others will say mitzvahs ain't tzarichis kavana, that you do not need kavana. Right? Give me a second. Right? But then give me a second. And then the problem with this, by the way, is another question. If it's tied to intent, then what happens if you're in shul itself? You made it to shul. And then they stop blowing the shofar. What happens if you don't have intent to be yotze, to fulfill your obligation while you're standing in shul? According to this Mishnah, it's only if you're outside the shul that this becomes a problem. Inside the shul, it's mashma. Even if you didn't have intent, it wouldn't be a problem. I asked myself this question seven and a third years ago, and I didn't have an answer then. And I still don't have an answer now. So let's see. Maybe smarter minds will prevail as we do this Gemara. But you see the question, right? The question is pretty obvious. If it's got to do with intent, then why are you bringing a case of when he walks behind the shul or he's in a house near the shul? Say you're in the shul, but I didn't. Well, if you have intent, you're yotze. If you don't have intent, you're not yotze. What does it have to do? So, but anyways, let's start doing the Gemara. Tanu Rabbanan aruch v'kitzroi kosher. If a shofar was long and one shortened it from the top, you shortened it from the top, it's still kosher. Gerdoi, if he scraped it, the midi al gildoi, and left it with only its last thin layer, kosher, it's still kosher. Tzipu zo b'mokim menochas peh, if he plates it, we're on 27b2, if he plates it with a shofar with gold at the place where the mouth rests, puzzle, it's obviously no good. Shaloi b'mokim menochas peh, if he plates it higher up on the shofar, kosher. If he plates the shofar with gold on the inside, puzzle, it's clearly puzzle, because then you're not blowing through the shofar, you're blowing through a gold film. Mibachutz, if he plates the outside, in the shtana koil kimoishaya, if the sound changes from the way it was originally before it was plated, puzzle, it's no good. V'imlav kosher. Nikavu sesama, if a shofar was punctured, got a hole, and you sealed the shofar. If the seal hinders the blowing, it changes the sound, puzzle. V'imlav kosher. But if it leaves everything the same, it's kosher. Nosan shofar b'serich shofar. If he placed one shofar into a second shofar, im kol panimi shama. If he hears the sound of the shofar only from the inside shofar, yatsa, because that's the one he's actually blowing. That's the one he's blowing. The im kol chitzen shama. But if you also heard from the outside shofar, lo yatsa, he's not fulfilling his obligation. Tanu Rabbanon. Gardoi, if one scraped the shofar, bein b'vifnim, from the inside out, bein b'chutz, from the outside in, kosher, it's kosher. Gardoi, he scraped it. The midei al gardoi, and left it with its last thin layer, kosher, it's still kosher. Haniach shofar b'serich shofar, he puts one shofar into another. In kol panimi shama yotzeh, you hear the sound of the inside one, it's yotzeh. In kol chitzen shama lo yotzeh. Hachvoi v'tokaboy, if he reverses the shofar and he blows into it, loy yotza. He's not yotza. You got to blow from the bottom part of the shofar, not the top. Amara papa loy b'tema tahapach ki tuna, doesn't mean Don't say that he reversed the shofar like one reverses a shirt. He turned it inside out. It means that he widened the narrow end, the kitza is harochav, and narrowed the wide end. My tama, why is such a shofar no good? Kidaramasna. The Amaramasna, where the Torah says va'avarta, and you should cause a trua to pass. Derach havirosai beinan. It needs to be, the shofar has to be blown in the manner in which it was carried on the animal's head. The way it's carried on the animal's head, it's got a wide side with the side that's attached to its head, and the narrow side is away from it. Okay, okay. So I think we can go a little further, or we can stop right here. Let's go a little further. We'll go down to the two dots closer to the bottom. It says like this: Debake shivrei shofars possible. If one joined the pieces of various shofars, it's no good. Tanu Rabbanan says that Rabbanan hoisiv alav kol shuhu, if he added to the shofar even by a slight amount of material, vein b'minoi, whether it's own kind, a shard from another shofar, vein shalai b'minoi, or something else, pottery, puzzle, it's no good. Ni kavu samai, if the shofar got punctured and he sealed the hole, vein b'minoi, whether he sealed it with its own kind, from a shofar, vein shalai b'minoi, or not its own kind, puzzle. It's no good. With its own min, it's good. Without its own min, it's possible. When he says that with its own kind of with another shofar, it's good. That's it's good that the majority of the shofar remained intact. If he patches up the hole with something that's not of its own kind, with pottery, even if most of the shofar remains, it would still not be good. There are those who taught Rabbi Yochanan's qualification on the last part of Rabbi Noson's ruling. If he sealed the shofar without its own kind of material, he sealed it not with a shofar, but with pottery, it's unfit. Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Yochanan, that's provided that the majority of the shofar is missing. Michlal, the yamina, the b'minoi, when you patch up a hole with another piece of shofar, even if the shofar is good, even if the majority is missing. If one plates the shofar with gold on the inside, puzzle. But if he plates it on the outside, if the sound changed from what it was originally, puzzle. If the sound remains the same, nistak archa, but then it's if the sound remains the same, kosher, it's good. Nistak archa, if the shofar split along its length, right? It's split. We're now on 27b4. Puzzle, it's no good, like we said before. But if it splits along its width, that means the narrow way, going from east to west, not north to south. In the if enough of a shofar is left for a blast is remains, so that even if it's split along that way, it still has enough length to blow a shofar, kosher. The imla, but if not, and it's the size of a whistle, it's no good. The kama shia tekiya, how much is the measurement that is considered small enough, the smallest enough measurement of a size of a shofar to be kosher to blow shofar? Pirish Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, the shofar needs to be long enough that you could hold it in your hand, and you can see the top part of the shofar protruding out of this part of the hand, and the part where you blow out of the shofar from that part of the hand. So it has to be bigger than a hand's breadth. It has to be, let's call it a hand's breadth and a half long. Okay? If the shofar was naturally thin, the sound, okay? Or thick, or rough, kosher, it's all good. Shekol hakoilis kisherim b'shofar. All sounds are valid in the case of a shofar. So, for an example, when somebody blows a shofar on Rosh Hashanah, a lot of times what happens, the beginning it's nice, and then by the time you hit number 60, 70, and 80, the sound gets a little weaker, right? It's not as high pitched, it's lower. It's okay, because all sounds are good for the shofar. Sholchu leila avua de Shmuel. They sent to Shmuel's father the following ruling. Kidachoi b'sokaboy. If one bored a hole in a horn and then blew into it, yotza, he's yotza. Frank the Gemara Pshita, Kulanami Mikori Doctor. That's what all shofars are. You bore a hole into the shofar in order to make a hole to blow. Says the Gemara, Amarabashi, Shadotche B'cha B'zachrusa, where he bore into the bony inside of the horn rather than removing the inside. Normally what happens is that the horn, they knock it with a hammer, and literally the inside of the horn slips out, almost like the marrow from a marrow bone. It slips out, only leaving the shell. In this case, instead of doing that, he simply took a drill and bored through it to the other side. Mao, the same way I might have thought, it's that a type of material, the bone, resting with a similar type of material, the bone. So the inside bone, which should have been removed, but wasn't, will be a chatzitza, will interpose with the outer wall, and therefore passel the shofar, kamash malon, that it's not a problem. Bone to bone is not an imposition, and the shofar blowing would be valid. Very good. This is where we're stopping. We're stopping at the 2 dots over here on the bottom, 6 lines from the bottom.